We'll call it the damage report. It's similar in some respects, but not all respects to the damage report. But I am John Iadarola. I am fresh in several respects off of the holiday break that we had. How was everyone's Thanksgiving? We're back in my shed. We'll go over why that's happening. But I want to thank everyone who's already here on YouTube. I assume we're going to get things going on Twitch at some point. So if some of the Twitch people come over and join us on the YouTube, let's be inviting to them. I'm sure that you will. But anyway, thank everybody for being here. Those of you who've already hit the like button, that's very nice. I had a great Thanksgiving. Some of my friends from grad school came over. It was very weird to have like 5 days off. It always is. I always feel very detached from things. And I don't know if you're feeling that too. Like there was stuff going on, not as much as usual, but there was stuff going on. We're going to have to do a little bit of catching up together. But the way that this is going to go is, if you saw our last Shed show, a little bit less formal than usual. I'm going to be occasionally whipping the camera around to show you video clips and things like that. We'll see if that even remotely works. And we will be responding to your comments and tweets and super chats and all that as we go. So, you know, send those to us and everything. But anyway, thank you for being here. Some people are saying we can't get on the YouTube members page. Okay, we're going to see if the team can deal with that. Someone says it feels like a pre-show. It does. Couldn't do the actual pre-show because we were preparing for this. But thank you, everyone, for being here. Yeah, we're gonna get Twitch. No, I think the Twitch is. I think it's working. I think if you're on Twitch, I think you're there. I think it's actually working. Everyone, hold for 1 second. John has very tiny, pointy ears. Thank you. I appreciate that. I had an ear job during Thanksgiving break. I'm glad that everyone is noticing it. Anyway, we had a little power problems at the studio or whatever, and it's the sort of thing that normally we can fairly quickly resolve. 1 day, 2 days max, we'll deal with that. But it's like the holiday, so I don't think anyone wanted to be forced to spend like the whole weekend resolving all these problems and everything. And if the cost of like everyone getting to actually experience the holiday is that we do a Shed show or whatever, I think it's fine. I think it's personally fine. Hopefully you will like it as well. What I can say is that we do have something like 90 minutes of news for you. I don't know exactly how long it's going to go. I can't see a clock, but we will have news in just a minute. And like I said, I'll still be responding to your comments and everything. I can see I have both of your things, so that should work pretty well. Anyway, with that, who's ready to talk about some news? You want to see what's been going on? Okay. There have been some awful right-wingers recently who have tried to make a name for themselves exclusively by being the absolute worst. Marjorie Greene pops up on your radar for that reason pretty much every week. Paul Gosar this month made a very strong play for worst guy in the country. Lauren Boebert is not going to be left behind when it comes to being awful. She wants to be King Clown. And so she had this event. Some people were hanging out with her. And she just went on a tear saying the worst things that she could come up with. So we're going to show a few of those to you. We're going to be starting off, though, with her most recent Islamophobic comments. So for the first time of many on this show, I'm going to be whipping you around. So just hold. And we're gonna hopefully this is going to look okay. Hopefully you're going to be able to hear this as we get into Lauren Boebert.
Actually, I have an Ilhan story for you. So the other night on the house floor was not my first jihad squad moment. So I was getting into an elevator with one of my staffers, and he and I were leaving the Capitol. We're going back to my office, and we get in the elevator, and I see a Capitol police officer running hurriedly to the elevator. I see fret all over his face, and he's reaching. And I'm like, what? The door's shutting. Like I can't open it. Like, what's happening? I look to my left, and there she is, Ilhan Omar. And I said, well, she doesn't have a backpack. We should be fine. So we only had one floor to go, and I was like, did I say it or not? I looked over, and I said, oh, look, the jihad squad decided decided to show up for work today. Don't worry, it's just her staffers on Twitter that talk for her. She's not tough in person. She doesn't, yes. So.
Okay, so let's evaluate. Let's evaluate a few things that happened there. One, she starts off that whole thing by saying, this wasn't my first jihad squad thing, but that all you mean by that is that you've supposedly done Islamophobic things in the past. Well, that's awesome. That's great. I thought you were newly Islamophobic. Oh, okay, so you've had a problem with them and you've tried to get people to support you in the absence of any sort of platform or strong positions or knowledge of the issues by regularly saying Islamophobic things. I see. Okay. So then this thing happened in the elevator. Now, we're going to flash out. I'm going to give you a spoiler. Ilhan Omar says that none of this actually happened. And we get to evaluate whether we think Lauren Boebert is being honest or Ilhan Omar is being honest. So the base of this story is that Lauren Boebert got onto an elevator with someone, and it was Ilhan Omar, and she had no idea for the first 30 seconds who she'd gotten on the elevator with. Do we believe that that is true? Do we believe that, despite all of the back and forths they've had, she didn't recognize Ilhan Omar? She didn't know that it was... That's so stupid, so juvenile. And the entire purpose, of course, is the story is, oh, Ilhan Omar, she's Muslim, so she's always at risk of potentially blowing something up. She's a terrorist, okay? Stereotypes are fun. She got on an elevator with someone who is Muslim, so she makes a joke about them blowing up something. Okay, in the same way, I'm sure, because she likes comedy and she doesn't believe that we should be snowflakes, if you got in the elevator with her and she's presumably Christian, you could say, oh God, I was worried that you were going to like rape a choir boy. I thought you were going to, because you're Christian, and it's fun to make stereotypical jokes about religions. It's not just about Muslims, it's everybody. We do this for everybody, but of course we don't. So, and then we'll get to the last little bit right there as well. But I want to give Ilhan Omar a chance to respond to this apparently totally made up story that Ilhan Omar said at this gathering for, and let's be clear, just clout. That's it. She has to go before a crowd. And if you do that, have you ever spoken in public? You would ideally like them to cheer for you, to clap, to maybe laugh. So you have to give them something. What does Lauren Boebert believe she has to give? Now, absent this video, forget this video, I could have speculated about what she had to give, but she's showing us what she thinks she has to give, and what she thinks she has to give is Islamophobic jokes. That's it. That's it. Now, Ilhan Omar says, fact, this buffoon looks down when she sees me at the Capitol. This whole story is made up. Sad she thinks bigotry gets her clout. Anti-Muslim bigotry isn't funny and shouldn't be normalized. Congress can't be a place where hateful and dangerous Muslim tropes get no condemnation. It usually is. It regularly is. I mean, we haven't had it to test it very often as a society because we generally have only elected Christians for the most part, our entire history. But anyway, she goes on to say, because this isn't the first time that she's been the target of Islamophobic comments like this. First day of Congress, this member who said to Steve knew nothing about me beside the fact that I was Muslim and that somehow made me a terrorist to him. She's referencing the fact that Steve King back in the day had tweeted, Pelosi changed House rules for Ilhan Omar to allow her to wear her turban on the floor. First day, a member said to me, 4 pounds of C4 under that would wipe out half of Congress. Again, it's funny. It's funny because she's a Muslim, so she wants to kill Congress. That's the joke. Now, there's a few things that potentially make it a little bit less funny, and a little bit hypocritical too. Is Ilhan Omar one of the Congress people that is constantly fighting to bring guns on the House floor, thinks that you need to be armed, you have to have a weapon? They joke about her smuggling a weapon in there. They are actively trying to bring a weapon in. Oh, and by the way, in recent history, when people tried to get into Congress and kill our elected representatives, was it Ilhan Omar? Was there a single Muslim in the group? Who was trying to wipe out half of Congress? It was not Ilhan Omar. It was not a Democrat. But to him, it's funny. And again, it's probably made up too. Did a member say that to him? I don't know. Was it Lauren Boebert? I don't know. But he knew that he could make that joke on Twitter and that would get him some retweets. Some conservatives would be into him. In the same way that Lauren Boebert is not going to come with the Green New Deal. She's not going to come with a public housing plan. She's not going to help you with your mortgage or your student loan debt. She doesn't care about that. She also doesn't know about that. But even if she did know the details, she wouldn't care to do anything about it. What she does know is that many people in the Republican base are as simple-minded as she is. It's a variation of what we've always had. Republicans for a long time have generally been, Ivy League lawyers and all that stuff, who then do all of this stuff for, in their view, the Republican simpletons. Okay? In this case, they've sort of cut out the middleman. They're just electing the Republican simpletons. When you get Matt Gaetz and her and, Marjorie Greene, they're not sending their best. And she understands that that's what they want. If she can just deliver some fun conspiracy theories and a little bit of Islamophobia, and as we'll get to, some homophobia as well, then that's all you need. Why the hell are you going to spend months consulting with policy experts, putting together bills, trying to get them passed? Why would you do any of that when you can just make a comment about how Ilhan Omar must be some sort of terrorist? Well, we have a few developments on this. I want to give you a little bit more from Ilhan Omar. She said, saying I'm a suicide bomber is no laughing matter. GOP leader and Speaker Pelosi need to take appropriate action. Normalizing this bigotry not only endangers my life, but the lives of all Muslims. Anti-Muslim bigotry has no place in Congress. Now, there's two surprises about this, actually. The first surprise is that the Democratic leadership is actually doing something. They actually seem to care about this. And I honestly think it's because we're so fresh off of the Gosar thing. It would be weird for them to attack Gosar and then totally give a pass to Boebert here. But that's my speculation. What I do know is the House Democratic leadership put out a statement, including this, saying, racism and bigotry in any form, including Islamophobia, must always be called out, confronted, and condemned in any place it is found. Congresswoman Boebert's repeated, ongoing, and targeted Islamophobic comments and actions against another member of Congress, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, are both deeply offensive and concerning. We call upon Congresswoman Boebert to fully retract these comments and refrain from making similar ones going forward. Well, there are two requests there. One is to retract, two is to not do it. We will have to see about the second, but the second shock is that she sort of gave them the first. Now, who apologizes on the right? Honestly, Marjorie Greene sort of apologized a little bit specifically for the Holocaust comparisons on the anti-vax stuff. That's it. Not the rest of the stuff. She didn't apologize for I think Nancy Pelosi should be shot in the head, the Jewish space lasers, or, I think Q has a couple of good points and he's just a good American. She didn't apologize for any of that. She apologized for the Holocaust thing, a little bit. Now, Representative Lauren Boebert, 3 days ago, posted this tweet saying, I apologize to anyone in the Muslim community I offended with my comment about Representative Omar. I have reached out to her office to speak with her directly. There are plenty of policy differences to focus on without this unnecessary distraction. Now, that apology, I'm going to rank as dog stuff, okay? For a few different reasons. Now, first of all, it happened. She apologized. So, how much credit do we give her? She technically apologized. They don't generally do that for a few different reasons. It's not in them. They're not, compassionate people. And they're giving their audience what they want. She didn't accidentally say it. But I apologize to anyone I offended with my comment about Representative Omar. It's not the worst formulation of that. They sometimes say, if I offended anyone, as if they don't know. In this case, I would say, what I said was deeply offensive. That is an honest thing to say. We don't get full honesty from her, but it's not the worst version. There are plenty of policy differences to focus on without this unnecessary distraction. That is also dog stuff, because that is saying the fact that we're talking about this is a distraction. What are you talking about? You brought it up. You made those comments. And I really doubt she's some sort of extemporaneous speaker. I think that she had scripted it. I don't know for sure. But this is not a distraction. This is what she wanted to talk about. And plenty of policy differences. When the hell have you ever talked about a policy difference? In any event, she sort of apologized. Now we're going to have to see what effect that has on what happens. It has already had a couple of little ripples. So let's jump into those. According to Political Playbook, some Democrats, particularly allies of Omar, don't see Boebert's apology as authentic. Well, do you think? Omar's office would not say whether she will take Boebert up on her offer to meet. Why would she? No, honestly, why would she? Do you think that it would change Boebert's behavior going forward? I don't know, maybe you do. Maybe we can have a poll. But other Democrats privately worry that if they punish a lawmaker who admits a mistake and tries to make amends, they'll be setting themselves up for similar treatment or worse under a future GOP majority. The situation highlights the slippery slope Democrats created when they removed MTG from her committees over comments she made before entering Congress. Where do Democrats draw the line? If Democrats don't lower the boom on Boebert, what message would it send to the Muslim community? But if they do, what message does that send to those who apologize for saying something wrong? Okay, I normally hate every single word of Political Playbook. In this case, I only hate most. The fact that she apologized does make this a more interesting case. So get ready to evaluate what I'm about to say. You can type it in and we'll see. I think that in this case, don't punish her. What do you think? What do you think it might take? Can I explain why? Okay, so, and by the way, when I say don't punish her, I am not saying I buy her apology. I think that she's actually sorry or anything like that. I don't. But I do want them to be able to back off. Now look, if she jumps immediately back into it, then of course we're having a different conversation, I think. But if they still censure her in the exact same way, then will they ever apologize again? Will they? Now, notice, she apologized. Why did she apologize? Okay, let's think about that. I think she apologized because there was a little bit of an uproar and there is a precedent of punishment, which means that well, if you believe what I'm saying, that the punishment is actually having an effect. It didn't stop her from saying it, but it's perhaps making them a little bit cautious. I think if you still punish her, as abhorrent as what she said was, they'll never back off again. They probably won't anyway. Let's be clear. The future is dark no matter what road we go down, but I think that the best chance is backing off. Now, she will say these things again, and then, lower the boom on her or whatever. But we need to understand that the countervailing force of the effect that the punishment has had is from the other side. Marjorie Greene tweeted, Democrats want us censored, shut down, and imprisoned. Never apologize to Islamic terrorist sympathizers, communists, or those who fund murder with our tax dollars. Ilhan and the Jihad Squad are all three and are undeserving of an apology. So she's awful. And the fact that she's going even farther than Boebert, I think buttresses the punishment that she already experienced. I think that backing off a little bit on Boebert until she does it again, and then having Marjorie come out hard in favor of these Islamophobic attacks, I think that kind of helps us to the extent that anything can, to the extent that anything actually gets out there and gets to people. Now, at the end of the day, that's just my opinion. And my opinion, I would say, doesn't matter. What does Ilhan Omar think? What do American Muslims think? I think that those are very interesting points. And in that case, we will have to see. Now, we're gonna turn to a different angle in one sec. She will definitely go back to being terrible next week. That is true. But she at least sort of backed down a little bit. Anyway, let's jump into this. In her speech, Lauren Boebert spent a lot of time attacking Muslims, attacking the LGBTQ community. But in her little thing, she did find a little bit of time to give the right the other thing that they want. They want fear and suspicion and hatred, and they want conspiracy theories. So she gave them that as well. I'm going to whip you around to see this.
And the last time I was with President Trump, well, I did have a fancy little red dress to show off. I was sitting in his office in Florida, the new White House.
Yeah. The real White House.
The real White House, yeah. That's what everybody seems to be, I don't know.
ugh. That's just there was such a delay for them to actually cheer. And she must have been so, like, crestfallen at that point. Like, hey, I told you that the election didn't count. Isn't that the thing that you want? Okay, well, look, they liked the line the guy said, the real White House. Maybe she wasn't going clear. She had, like, a little bit of nuance or whatever, and I think that was too much, I think, at that point. But what she was saying there was, effectively, no, everybody, I also believe that the votes of the 7 million people that Biden got more than Trump don't count, that all of the court cases don't count. I think those things too. Love me. I believe all the crazy things that you do. And again, she had said previously, let's not get distracted. Let's focus on policy differences. Well, is that what she is doing? Is she focusing on policy? When they spend months after months after months denying the results of an election, despite the fact that we've been through so much of this, not just the dozens and dozens of court cases and the audits of individual states and the recounts in the states that were close and I don't know, all the other stuff that's gone on over the course of the past year, they still have to do it. There has been no equivalent. There was never anything like this after 2016. Were there people that were mad? Yes. Are there people that were worried about things that might have influenced the outcome? Yes. But literally no one that was considered serious and had an actual following in a durable way ever tried to claim that the election had been stolen. They will try to, both sides, this. They have done that since 2020, since the election. It simply doesn't exist. This is just a sad... What the right gives, what grifters give, grifters in media and grifters in politics, is making people comfortable. That's what it is. Now, that comfort might come in the form of getting them worked up in the way that they want. These people might be comfortable being afraid. They might be comfortable being angry. But comfort is the goal. And nothing makes these people less comfortable than accepting inconvenient facts. Okay, an inconvenient, difficult truth to accept. And the hardest one for them is they just didn't like your guy. It was still kind of a close election, but they chose the other guy. And so if you were in right-wing media or if you're a right-wing politician and a grifter, you cannot allow them to ever have to think about that. And so that's what she's giving him there. It's pretty damn see-through. And delivered so poorly. Delivered, like, oh God. And she's so happy with herself with the red dress. Again, is any of this substantive coming out of her? She wants to present herself as one of the next generation of leaders of the right wing, and might well be, I think, a case could be made, in that she at least has a following. But a following towards what? If you have a following, presumably you're leading. What is she leading towards at this point? But anyway, there is still one other horrible thing. And I apologize, everyone, for the volume here. It's the nature of the beast. I saw someone commented, hey, the production value's low. Do you think? It is a little bit. But anyway, tomorrow we'll be back in studio. Okay. Lauren Boebert made a little bit of time in her address over the holidays to once again launch homophobic attacks against Pete Buttigieg. And I will say, as I have always said, I am not a fan of Pete Buttigieg. I have no interest in his presidential aspirations, and I don't think that he was qualified for the position that he has. However, those are, I think, fair, substantive critiques. If you'd like an example of one that is neither of those things, let's take a look at this. And I will remind you, this is a sitting congresswoman.
Meanwhile, you have the Secretary of Transportation, good old Mayor Pete. He wasn't even put in charge of the supply chain crisis. No, someone else was tapped for that because Mayor Pete is still at home trying to figure out how to chest feed. Somebody ought to tell him so he can get back to work.
Right.
That was fun. Somebody ought to tell him what? Someone ought to tell him so he can get back to work. What? Tell him how to chest feed? Tell him, was she saying that he can't? That, her whole homophobic thing about, gay parents aren't really parents? She didn't even complete the thought. She doesn't even know what she's doing. She's really bad at this. But anyway, the overall point was, good old Mayor Pete is wasting our time by taking paternity leave, because I will remind you, and the reason that I want to focus on these is paternity leave, maternity leave, all of this is good for workers, so they hate it. They despise it, and they want you to turn against it too. Okay? They cannot stand against the population pushing for the leave that they deserve, so they have to get you to opt out. And so that attack has been coming from so many different directions. So it might be the Lauren Boeberts, it might be the, oh my God, I'm forgetting it, Joe Rogan. I forgot for a second what his name was. That was a good moment. Joe Rogan trying to make you feel terrible for taking the leave that you deserve, that you would get in virtually any other country around the world. Do not fall for the con. But the way in this case that she's pushing for it is with homophobic attacks against Pete Buttigieg. Good old Pete Buttigieg. And even that line doesn't make any sense. What history does she have with Pete Buttigieg? The right has barely any history with Pete Buttigieg. Now, I, as a progressive, I could say good old Pete Buttigieg because we've been through these different cycles through the primary with him and dealing with all of his stuff. She doesn't have that. She just throws out words and has no idea what they actually mean or where they should be deployed. But the attack is that he can't chest feed. And I will say this on the chest feeding. I looked this up. It is apparently a regional thing, whether you say chest feed or breastfeed. And I will acknowledge that absent upbringing, neither of those makes more sense than the other. But as a person who's raised in a part of the country that says breastfeed, when you say chest feed, it sounds insane. That's a really weird thing to say. It's not wrong, but it feels wrong. Anyway, here's the thing, Lauren Boebert. Whether he can chest feed or not, he gets to spend time with the kid that he and his husband adopted. They get to do that. Families come in many different forms, okay? Some of them adopt children. Some give birth in trucks. You still get to be a parent regardless, okay? Some people have an old school, classic American mom and dad. Some have a mom who's a horrendous Islamaphobe and a dad who pulled his dick out in a bowling alley. So families, again, come in all different forms. That doesn't mean that one is better than the other, although in the two examples I gave, the first one is definitely better than the second one. The second one's just awful. Those kids are going to grow up all sorts of messed up. And you get to take that time, whether you're straight or gay, cis or trans or whatever the hell you want, you deserve it, okay? Now, what's very interesting about this, and we've showed a couple different videos of her, is that there was pushback against several of her comments, against the Islamophobic comments and also against the homophobic comments. She apologized for the Islamophobic comments. She did not apologize for the homophobic comments. And she did not return Insider's request for comment just yesterday. And so far, her apology for what she said about Ilhan Omar was like 3 days ago. And that's it. Nothing else has happened since then. So why is that? Does she believe that what she said wasn't as bad? Does she believe that, I guess, you're just allowed again to make casual homophobic comments? I guess. I mean, that's what it's looking like. And by the way, I haven't seen House Democratic leadership sticking up for him. Now, to be fair, he's not in the House, and Ilhan Omar is. But then shouldn't the White House be sticking up? I don't know. It's just very weird when, like, if we're going to expect some sort of base level of seriousness and maturity from our representatives, then I feel like we should apply that to Muslim Americans and members of the LGBTQ community. Does that seem unfair? I don't know. I think that that's a good idea. Anyway, that is enough Lauren Boebert for us. We are going to move into some comments for a second. I'm going to get a little bit of chai. COVID continues to evolve as we continue to devolve. But first, let's see what's been going on in the audience, and what it looks like is a lot has been going on. Jesus. Okay. So, Rain Wahda, welcome to Tier 1 membership on YouTube. Thank you for that. Oh, and let me say, by the way, I apologize for the fact that my audio to you right now is probably not that good. The audio coming out of the video is going to be terrible, although once they get uploaded to YouTube, they'll be replaced because our editors are awesome. It's low production value, and I apologize. So if you're sticking with us and watching this, thank you so much. If you're becoming a member while watching this, I love you. Thank you. That's the Thanksgiving miracle I needed. Anyway, May Money into Building hit tier 2 for the 12th month. Says, happy anniversary, John. I'm driving back to the Bay from Malibu right now. Gonna drop by Pismo Beach first, though, and get something to eat in LA somewhere. Good idea. There's some good food up north. I went to a seafood place on the beach once. It was very good. And Duke's. Duke's has this dessert, this massive wave of cake. You should go there. Anyway, Thomas Cunningham, welcome to Tier 1 YouTube membership. Brandy Rubel hit the 11th month at Tier 2, says, woohoo! Woohoo for you. Double O hit Tier 3 for the 12th month. Double O, always glad to see you. Says, only 12 months, seems like so much longer, am I right? Did Dave or whomever else collect the presents from the P.O. Box yet? I'm a little worried the one I sent got lost somehow because it supposedly arrived on November 5th. Let me know. I have not gotten a delivery for probably at least that long, so I wouldn't be worried just yet. Jonathan says, I for one love shed shows. I'm a big fan of all the art and the layout. Have a safe and awesome holiday, Dragon Squad. Thank you. Someone asked, is that a rabbit in armor behind you? Almost certainly yes. Major, you're not blocked. People often think that they're blocked, but I see their comments, so I'm assuming that they're not. Love Dragon says, amazing how conservatives can threaten violence against others and make racist comments, but cry like 5-year-old children if somebody holds them accountable. 100%. John Romano says, in unrelated news, is that an Asus laptop? The keyboard looks just like my ROG Zephyrus. It is, in fact, a Zephyrus G14, yes. Non-Human Humanist says, you rock your home office, John. I try. Somebody has to. Sea Turtle, thank you for your super chat. Much appreciated. Real Life Jolie says, aw, I'm so sorry Franny dumped you. Like I said in my not yet answered cover letter for the Rebel HQ job, I'm utter bollocks at working off the cuff, but were I on a team, I would have at least tried to help. Thank you. She didn't dump me, okay? She would have been here. Although, actually, no, she wouldn't have been here. Francesca was gone. She's on vacation. But Viviana was going to be here until we had the problems with tech and everything. But no, I have many friends who like to co-host with me. I'm alone because I choose to, not because I need to. Anyway, Gabby says, hey Gabby, says Republicans are basically just bad FM radio shock jocks at this point. Also, did you see the election in Honduras yet? Also, happy anniversary. No, I saw the lead up to it. I knew some of the stakes, but no, I did not see the final results. And thank you. Yesterday was the 2-year wedding anniversary of myself and my wife. Okay, over in Twitch, Rubert hit 4 months. Thank you. Future Discipline Neon hit 10. Thank you very much. Alex the Bait hit 5. Bernie Baby hit 9. Says 9 months on Bezos' dime. Nice. Rebel Mitch hit 17 months. Damn. Let's see. Lieutenant McG says, I am being serious, by the way. For those that did not know, her husband has been convicted of domestic abuse and flashing to women at a bowling alley. That's what I was referencing, yeah, in my little comment there. It was a while ago, and apparently we don't take that seriously. But supposedly they care about, like child predators and all that. Stanley hit 18 months, says, it's been so nice listening and interacting with TYT for the past 18 months, and before at TYT.com, and before that on Twitter. What a huge community of fantastic people, past and present. And then there's a few exceptions at the end, but thank you for being here. I love our community. I love knowing that, like, even if we do one of these weird shed shows, like, you're going to be here. Thank you. I really do appreciate that. Dana Manning gifted 5 Tier 1 subs on Twitch. Thank you so much. Also, I want to let you know about a few things. One is that my throat is incredibly dry. Normally, other people talk. So that's fun. Today is day 8 of our 9 days of Impact at Shop TYT. We are almost out. It is 30% off site-wide for everyone. That's crazy. I don't think that I've seen that before. By the way, we have the Black Bomber jacket, and we have new patch packs. So if you want to customize it, mine is like patched up. You can go take a look at that, Shop TYT. Also, today is Monday. Despite the fact that we have no Francesca, I will still be doing a top 10 list for our Tier 2 and Tier 3 members. And that is going to be, back at like a month or 2 ago, we did our top 10 favorite things about Squid Game. Well, I finished another show, and I really want to talk about it. So this is going to be my top 10 favorite things about Arcane, a new series on Netflix that I loved, and I can't wait to talk about. So that will be coming up a little bit later on today. With that said, we are burning through this hour so fast that my producers are probably horrified. So let's see if we can make up a little bit of time here. You've probably heard about the Omicron variant, or at least I hope that you have. It's a new variant of COVID-19, and we're still trying to figure out exactly how terrified we should be, but we should at least know what's going on. So there's a little bit of good news and a little bit of bad news, and I've been combing through as much of it as I can to try to figure out what's going on. Now, Dr. Angelique Coetzee is a doctor in South Africa. Was one of the, I believe, was the first doctor who flagged the Omicron variant. And her commentary so far has seemingly been aimed at getting us to calm down a little bit. She says that so far, the symptoms that she's seen, people who've had this variant have had more mild versions of COVID. Their symptoms have not been as serious. They haven't lost their sense of smell or taste. Didn't have a cough, which seems like a huge difference from traditional COVID. And so all of that is good news. She seems to be saying, don't freak out too much. But that said, others are. So the World Health Organization labeled Omicron a variant of concern last Friday. Countries across Europe, Asia, and North America have instituted a wave of travel restrictions on southern African nations, including southern African nations that have very low levels of COVID, in particular in comparison to us. So we could have a debate about how fair that is. It's not. But there is a new variant, and we don't yet know how terrified we should be about it. So that's a consideration as well. Now, Omicron, which is technically, and you'll never hear this again, the B11529 variant was first identified in Botswana and South Africa and has since spread to Israel, the UK, the Netherlands, Germany, Italy, the Czech Republic, Australia, I should say, Belgium, and Hong Kong. I do not believe that it has yet been found here in the US. So that is good news. In any event, some people are saying good news, some are saying bad news about how serious it's going to be and how big we can expect the response of the United States to be. The WHO says that there's a high number of mutations, 32 variations of the spike protein, that could mean that we're expecting future surges of this because it is more mutated than some of the other variants. Now, the good news is the NIH director said that the boosters, so the booster vaccines that we've been encouraging you to get, do in fact allow your immune system to have a wide range of capabilities against spike proteins it hasn't even seen before. So if you needed one more reason, if you're eligible, you should get boosted. So the boosters are going to protect you not just against traditional COVID and the variants that we've seen, also in South Africa. But also against ones that we haven't yet seen necessarily. Now, let's get into Dr. Anthony Fauci, because he has been making the rounds, doing interviews about this, trying to, partly educate people, partly calm them down, maybe. So we have a bunch of different things here. Some of this seems a little inconsistent. Let's work through it and see what we can figure out. He says we should not be freaking out. We should be doing the things we know work. It's not the time to panic. We should be concerned, and our concern should spur us to do the things we know work. So rather than panicking, rather than freaking out, we should just do the right thing. Okay, so what does that include? Well, getting vaccinated, getting boosted if you're already vaccinated, probably, like social distancing and those sorts of things. Now, he also pointed out that PCR tests do seem to detect the variant perfectly well, so our ability to detect it has not been hindered at the very least. He goes on to say, get vaccinated for those who are unvaccinated. Absolutely, get boosted if you have been. It appears to be spreading very readily. The things that we don't know right now is whether the people who do get infected have a severe form of disease, which I found to be an interesting thing to say. Well, look, at least the doctor we talked about in South Africa is saying it does seem to be mild. I guess, to be fair, one doctor's experience, we have a lot of reason over the past year to not necessarily take the word of any individual doctor. He says the profile of the mutation strongly suggests that it's going to have an advantage in transmissibility, and that it might evade immune protection that you would get, for example, from a monoclonal antibody or from the convalescent serum after a person's been infected, and possibly against even some of the vaccine-induced antibodies. And that's where it gets potentially a little bit scary. Let's pause for 1 second. Let's see if I can potentially... Sometimes I'm able to do live stuff. Thank you to the mod Vitingale for taking care of that. I was trying to, and sometimes it doesn't let me do it. Anyway, so look, we're going to be talking a little bit about natural immunity, which is being talked about a lot by the right. There's reason to believe that Omicron might not be hindered all that much by that, but even potentially by the vaccine. So that sucks. That's the last thing that we want, of course. But what we do want to know at this point is that the best defense we have is to be vaccinated and to get the booster. And that's it. And honestly, if that even marginally, let alone significantly, raises the chance that you'll be protected against even these new variants, it is hardly a difficult thing to ask for. So I've heard a lot of Republicans, many of which like to claim that they're alpha males over the past few years, talk about how, oh, there's always going to be another one. They're going to have you getting a booster for the rest of your life. Every year. Do you know what getting a booster is? You go to Walgreens, and 15 minutes later, you have a booster. Okay, what's the problem with that? Do you not go to CVS once a year anyway? Just do it then. You know what I did? When I got boosted, I got my flu vaccine too. Same time. That's it. I was gone. I got a bag of candy. It was kind of nice. It was my excuse to get a bag of candy. And then I was off, and I probably don't have to worry about it for 6 months. It's really not that difficult. These are people that love to talk about like how we should serve our country. You should go in the military. Like, you expect all of that? You won't get a shot every 6 months at a Walgreens? Pathetic. Now, the fact that the Omicron variant is now being talked about means that the conspiracy theories were never going to be far off, and they're already here, and they are pathetic. So, Trilby Smith said, Omicron, new C19 variant, check it. It's an anagram for moronic. Oh dear, that is true. Moronic definition, adjective, very foolish or stupid. I love that the conspiracy theorists felt the need to define moronic in their tweet. They are just making fun of people now. Please wake up and quit being the butt of the joke. We are waiting to progress forward. And then there's a gif of wakey wakey. That's not why they named it that. That's stupid. Like, they love this stuff. Man, like, they should really just get into numerology because it's at least more compelling, the difficulty you need to do in getting the 6 and adding in the 19 if you divide by how many years the WHO has been around. Omicron is a Greek letter. It's been around for thousands of years. It's not new. We already had Delta. Was that not an indication that we might progress through the Greek alphabet? But no, they find it very convincing. And, by the way, Trilby Smith was not the only person to come up with this. Lynn's Pieces says, just realized, the Omicron variant is an anagram of moronic. It's also very timely. Right before Christmas, here comes a new variant. Great for lockdowns, and just in time for the media to start bleeding on constantly about getting the booster while blaming the unvaccinated. Well, you know one way that you could avoid the bleeding? Just get it. Just shut up and get it. It'll take you 5 minutes, you can get a bag of candy. But here is the place where it gets a little bit more fun. So these absolute randos on Twitter are getting hundreds of retweets from their, like, oh, of course it's going to come, they need it now. But there has never been less of a gap between randos on Twitter and people who get paid millions to spread this stuff on the House floor, on Fox News, on independent right-wing media. And I want to demonstrate that for you now. Take a look at this video from Fox and Friends.
Pete Buttigieg, our transportation secretary, is potentially our new president in 2024, or so the Democrats want, has said we can't fix the supply chain problem until the pandemic is over, until COVID is over, and now we see these new variants. So that's the answer: is more lockdowns, more fear, and therefore he doesn't have to.
Well, they wouldn't want more fear
supply chain because we'll just keep this whole thing going.
It's always a new variant.
And you'll count on a variant about every October, every 2 years.
Oh, I think it's gonna. Yep. You're probably right.
I mean, however,
they could speed up. The variants could come more quickly. And
we're going to need a new variant here.
My fear.
It's not great. It's going to come more quickly. Can I get a variant? I'm not really qualified for this. Anyway, they get paid millions to do that. So the joke's on us. They get paid more than all of us collectively to convince people to not take this seriously. So yes, you're going to get a new variant every October. Why did he say that? because his mind is mush. It's moldy oatmeal, and he remembers that things got really bad last year. In October into November, December, and all of that, we had the dark winter. We had that likely because of the onset of cold weather and people being huddled together, as well as the holidays and a lot of travel. We didn't have it because of a new variant. The new variant came after that, but he has no idea. Again, moldy oatmeal. What he is probably worried about is that things could get bad again. And he knows that things could get bad again because he knows that COVID isn't a hoax, that it is real. They know all of this, these rich, vaccinated people on Fox and Friends, but they do have to, again, keep their audience comfortable. And their audience has been told to not take this seriously, to not actually worry about it. So they're going to stick with that. So they would say, if you were to ask them, so are you against all of this stuff? Like, you seem like you're pro-COVID. They would say, no, I'm not pro-COVID. I'm just against the mandates. What part of any of this has to do with the mandates? Literally just spending time on your morning show for an audience of millions of people, telling them they make up the variants. They don't make up the variants. The variants exist. And by the way, how is it happening? How are these variants developing? In countries around the world, lots of people are still highly sick with huge case counts of COVID in countries that have very low vaccination rates because they don't have access to the vaccine, or they don't have nearly enough of it. And so mutations develop and then spread. And I will ask you, what did we say was going to happen? If we continue to stay sick, if we don't help other countries, if we allow them to continue to have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of cases a day over months and months, what did we say was going to happen? But they say no, don't worry about it. We don't want the vaccine, but we definitely don't want anyone else to get it. What did we say would happen? Over and over and over again, they deny and they lie, and then things get bad again, and then they don't care about that either. We said that the winter was going to be dark last year, and they said don't worry about it, continue to travel, don't let it affect your behavior in any way. And then things got really bad. Did they care? Did they apologize? Did they integrate that into their learning? No, they haven't learned literally anything, or at least they want to convince you that they haven't. And what is their plan? I'm going to go to one more video for you. More amazing lying. Here is Anthony Mace, Republican Congresswoman.
In some studies that I've read, natural immunity gives you 27 times more protection against future COVID infection than a vaccination. And so we need to take all of the science into account and not selectively choosing what science to follow when we are making policy decisions.
Okay. That was Nancy Mace saying, well, I saw some study that said that just getting sick was 27 times better than the vaccine, which stops you from getting sick, so we need not be selective with our science. Where? What study? What study? What study says that getting COVID is 27 times better for antibodies than the vaccine? It doesn't exist, and she's not providing it. But there's another important point that she's sort of glossing over there, which is not just about whether she has the study. Okay, you can get the vaccine, or you can have the natural immunity, which isn't immunity. What's the major difference between those two things? Getting vaccinated and getting natural immunity. One requires you to get COVID. So, if you're worried about getting COVID, I've got a plan for you. Get COVID, and then maybe you'll be a little bit protected against getting COVID. That's a crazy thing for an individual person to say, but when you come on Fox News and then they say, as they did in that interview, it's amazing how successful your state has been in generating natural immunity, that just means more people are getting COVID. This is the herd immunity thing. I understand they're using different terminology. It's the same thing. Just let people get COVID. Just let it run rampant. Never mind the fact that, of course, if you're vaccinated and you get it, you're much more likely to be asymptomatic, and if you have symptoms, to have a much lighter case, to not experience long COVID to the same degree, to not have to go to a hospital. No, their plan is just get it. We've been saying for a year and a half they're pro-COVID, and we're the crazies for saying that. Their plan is, if you're worried about COVID, go get COVID. But I'm crazy. I'm crazy. By the way, there's other Nancy Maces out there. Ronnie Jackson says, here comes the MEV, the midterm election variant. They need a reason to push unsolicited nationwide mail-in ballots. Democrats will do anything to cheat during an election, but we're not going to let them. Yep, we came up with Omicron in Botswana a year before the election so that we could have mail-in ballots. That's how it works. What are you talking about? The Democrats can't even pass one of their voting rights bills. Like, they literally are doing nothing. The entire national conversation, legislatively, in terms of this, has been generated by right-wing Republicans infringing on people's right to vote. That's it. But the Democrats will stop at nothing to lie. Michael Knowles, who's one of the Ben Shapiro clones, he had said, spoiler alert, there's always going to be another variant. And Ted Cruz quote retweeted that with, true that. Which, first of all, ugh. Second of all, that is a senator saying there's always going to be another variant. So don't worry. Why are you taking this seriously? They make it up. It's convenient. Botswana generated a new variant because the Democrats did it at some point. God, Ted Cruz. Stephen Miller, found out about Omicron and went on the news and said, if Trump were president, we would already have modified vaccines for the new Omicron variants. First of all, how? Second of all, we don't even know if it needs to be modified yet. The vaccines we have might be fine. And third of all, I got news for you, Stephen Miller. If Trump were still president and you had the new variants for Omicron in the vaccine, you'd be telling people not to take it. Because that's all you people have done this entire time. You wouldn't be going on Fox News to tell them to take the new variant. You sure wouldn't be doing that, because they'd consider you a commie if you did that. Anyway, that's enough Omicron. I'm sure we'll be talking about it for some time. I'm going to read a quick couple of your comments, and then we're going to move on to the next story. I apologize. We're not getting through as much as I would like. Sorry to my team. But really fast, Nan Mitchell, welcome to Tier 3 YouTube membership. The fact that you would sign on for Tier 3 shocks me during this show. But thank you so much for being here, Nan. I appreciate that. Lucinda Bean, welcome to Tier 1 membership. Thank you as well. RKNG1 Garcia hit Tier 2 for the 12th month. Says, we get flu shots annually, so what's the big deal? I don't know. I don't know. Grant Stanfield says, happy anniversary, John and Arlene. That is so nice of you. Thank you so much. Shanna Blakely says, I love Arcane. They did an amazing job. I'm basically obsessed. So good. You and me both, Shanna. Fair Queen says, your fan, Watson the Kitten, is getting neutered this week. It's a bit dangerous because he has a heart murmur. Please keep him in your thoughts. I hope that he gets through just fine. Sounds like an adorable kitten. Non-Human Humanist says, Switzerland said yes to the COVID protection law. Now sharper rules likely to follow. Some did not want to accept results and tried to storm the Bundeshaus. Well, there's just awful people everywhere. So, YT Purdue says, I'm not even sure whether that's about homophobia or gender roles. Maybe she's catering to a demographic that thinks parenting is the mother's job. Yes, it is also definitely homophobic. We can have a debate about whether it's also just about gender roles, and it more than likely is, but it's definitely homophobic. Okay, let's see. Sober Cody had said on Twitch, my sub-anniversary came up on Friday, but there was no show, so I figured I'd share my anniversary with TDD. I heard about TYT through my father, and first show I watched on the channel was watching TDR. Was wondering if I could be Epilepsy Dragon. You can. And thank you for being with us. Fragoon subscribed for 15 months on Twitch. Thank you. The Evil Cookie Dough, that's a name, hit 2 months. Nick Wax, 7. Thank you. Diego at Weston hit 10. Ching hit 13. Thank you so much. Make sure I'm not missing anything huge. Targeted Scapegoat hit 10 months. Thank you. Says, seems like only yesterday when I first found this gold mine. There's a level of humor that is needed when reporting the daily madness we live in, and I can't imagine a better group of people to bring it to us than TYT. Brett is my fave action figure. Me too, actually. Weird how that works. Okay, I will try to get through more of these. I apologize. Let's see. Lieutenant Mac McGee says, what's really funny... Wait, I'm losing my place. What is really funny about that comment, John, is one of the very first... Okay, people are copying and pasting things. Is that one of the very first things that happens in the Army military is you get so many shots. They literally put you in a line. You go from station to station getting shot after shot after shot. It was like 14 plus. Oh, then there's the smallpox vaccine. That one leaves a permanent scar I still have. Yes, because they don't actually have a problem with vaccines. They don't. Tommy Lauren was tweeting about how annoying it is that LA has anti-vaxxers a few years ago. They just have to follow the crazies. That's it. I did not produce this artwork, by the way. That should probably be clear. It's just inspiration for my story. Anyway, with that, let's talk about some more stuff. And I don't think there's any videos in this, so that's good. Anyway, thank you again, everybody, for being here. Oh, by the way, Indisputable will be happening at the normally scheduled time. But let's get through at least the C block in this hour. I woke up this morning, went on Twitter, and found out that the Democrats are about to pull the nuclear option. Well, wait, what does that mean? Does that mean, like, they're expanding the Supreme Court? Does that mean that they're, like, finally getting rid of student loan debt? Wait, does that mean that they're getting rid of the filibuster? No, it doesn't mean anything like that. Apparently, because they don't think that Kamala Harris is electable in 2024, they're doing the nuclear option of putting her on the Supreme Court. The left field Supreme Court theory, this is according to the Telegraph, would mean Mr. Biden nominating Ms. Harris, a former high-flying prosecutor, if a seat on the court became available over the next 3 years, which it may well. Mr. Biden could then use Section 2 of the 25th Amendment to nominate a more popular vice president after that. That person would be the presumptive Democratic nominee should Mr. Biden not run for re-election at the age of 82. If Mr. Biden stepped down before November 2024, the new vice president would then become the president and run as an incumbent. Okay, so that is the theory, and all of that is at least constitutional, which many of the theories we hear these days are not. Why would any of that happen, though? What? Okay, so Kamala Harris isn't popular enough to be elected, so what do we do, guys? What do we do? I have a theory. I have a plan. Nothing. You don't do anything. Why would you have to do anything at all? Kamala Harris is right now the VP. That doesn't mean she just gets to be the nominee in 2024. And I would argue she's probably not going to be. The weird thing about this is that they, like the Democrats, and when I say the Democrats, I mean like the centrist, moderate, corporate establishment Democrats, are just so sure that it has to be Harris or Buttigieg, and they will not accept any other alternative, that they are manipulating every position in government to try to make that happen. I want them to think about a couple of things. One, if she's not popular enough to be president, do you think it would be a popular move to throw her onto the Supreme Court? She was a prosecutor like 1 billion years ago. She's not a judge. Now, granted, you don't have to have served as a judge or whatever, but like I think we'd want it. Didn't we spend the last few years saying that the Republicans were suggesting people for the court that weren't qualified? And now we're just going to turn around and do the exact same thing? And for the dumbest possible reason, just so that she doesn't have to like run and lose in a primary, or run and lose in the in the general election, which implies that they think we shouldn't even have a primary, not just if it's Biden, but if it's Harris. I got news for you. You have a primary if the VP runs, and the VP doesn't have to run. Cheney didn't run for the presidency. Biden did, sure. You don't have to, though. You seriously don't have to do that. And you do not have to use a position on the Supreme Court as if it's just like a trick up your sleeve. That is a lifetime appointment, one of the most powerful positions in our government. And this is how callously they look at the import of that position. And Buttigieg too. Like, okay, Columbia SIPA has a tweet. Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg could agree to run together in 2024 if Biden does not run again, giving the Democratic Party a very strong ticket that would seem like a natural continuation of Biden's first term. Well, they did work for him, so I guess in that way, it sort of is a continuation. Why would it be a very strong ticket? Why? How did Harris do in her primary? No, primary is not the general election. I get that. But you have to win over your own people first before you can hope to win anyone else over. She didn't do well at all. Like, Buttigieg at least was part of that whole Super Tuesday shenanigans that they pulled. Harris had already dropped out like months earlier at that point, and Buttigieg had no chance of winning at that point. We have polls. We don't have to speculate about how popular people would be. We can actually look and find out. And again, just because they're not popular now doesn't mean that they don't get to run or might not become more popular, but we have data that we can actually apply to this. What all of this, the reason I want to talk about this is this Columbia thing and the Telegraph, their nuclear option. What is in these articles means almost nothing in comparison to what they are willingly leaving out, which is that there are other politicians that might be popular, that might do well, but the Democrats that are in charge don't want them to run, okay? And so we are still a long way off from the primary, let alone the general election. But I want you to all be ready, because if we want a candidate that we can get behind, look at the obstacles we are already coming up against. Okay, we're going to get into a bunch of stupidity in just about a minute. I am Sock says, but John, who has all of the Hillary consultant supports? Probably those two. Honestly, probably Buttigieg at this point. Cheney is the real-life penguin. That's funny. Okay, do we have time? Are we going to do the D block? Should we do the D block? Okay, we're going to do a quick version of the D block. We have 28 minutes. Well, less than that, actually. I'm not doing nearly enough. Should I even check my Slack? Should I see what my producers are saying? I'm a little bit worried. Okay, let's jump into this. Donald Trump has challenged everyone to a debate. Seemingly anyone, if you would like to debate him over the results of the 2020 election. And here's what he had to say. The fake news media cannot stand the fact that so many people in our country know the truth that the 2020 election was rigged and stolen, yet almost every article written contains the words the big lie or unsubstantiated facts, always trying to demean the real results. I love that, like, when you question him, you're demeaning the real results that he can't actually describe or prove in any context whatsoever. But he goes on to say, I am willing to challenge the heads of the various papers or even far-left politicians who have perpetuated the real big lie, which is voter irregularities and fraud on a massive and determinative scale. Who taught him determinative? Come on. Who put that word in? He definitely copied and pasted it. He did not type it himself. Maybe he dictated, I'm not sure. But he is saying here, let's see, if anyone would like a public debate on the facts, not the fiction, please let me know. It will be a ratings bonanza for television. Who cares about the ratings bonanza? Like, first of all, let's gloss over the fact that he doesn't believe a damn thing he's saying. He knows that it's not true. If he believed that it was true, who cares about the ratings? You're talking about an election was stolen, an election for the president of the United States, most powerful position. You had your re-election stolen from you, and you're worried about ABC getting ratings or not? Who are you going to debate? Shifty Schiff? Chris Cuomo? A judge? What would that be? What would be the point of that? I think, honestly, all this is he knows that some people are going to be testifying before the January 6th commission soon, including possibly Stephen Miller, Alex Jones, maybe Kevin McCarthy, Steve Bannon. Probably not him. And they're going to be getting watched, and the things they say people are going to be talking about, and he is getting pre-jealous already about that experience and talking about having this debate. Who would it be with? And who would care? We had a debate. We actually had several debates. Did you know this? We had several debates for the election. We had, first of all, the election. For literally months, we had him saying it was going to be stolen, you can't trust it, and we were like trying to reassure people, well, like, like it's going to be mail-in ballots, so it is going to take a couple of days to get the results. We already did the pre-debate. Then we voted. That, I think, is the real debate. And then he debated the individual facts in state courts dozens of times and could not win a case. So we've been through this. We've already had this. We're not doing another debate. Debate Chris Christie. By the way, did you know that after weeks of his media tour, he didn't hit the bestsellers list? Now that's fine if your book doesn't become a bestseller. And I mostly say that so that when mine comes out and doesn't become a bestseller, I don't look as bad. But he was on all of the most high-profile news shows, and still nobody bought the book, because why would they? Who the hell cares? Other news, new book came out and talked about Donald Trump and intelligence. Not his, thankfully, but about the intelligence reports that the CIA gives. So there's this book, Getting to Know the President by John Helgerson, former intelligence officer. It's been coming out for like 2.5 decades, and it evaluates the relationship between the intelligence community and the president. Now, we know that he was very openly aggressive towards them, insulting them and attacking them, those sorts of things. But they apparently had a problem with him too. Helgerson says the only and imperfect analog was the Nixon transition. So when they bring in Trump, the closest comparison is to when they brought in Nixon. They said Nixon effectively declined to work with the intelligence community and instead got his information through an intermediary. They said Trump was like Nixon, suspicious and insecure about the intelligence process. But unlike Nixon in the way he reacted, rather than shut the IC out, Trump engaged with it, but attacked it publicly, which is really how he treats basically anyone. He received regular briefings, despite publicly attacking them. As his presidency matured, however, he took them less regularly, and ultimately only received an average of 2 briefings per week. And at that point, we already know, we've been through this, it was down to a couple of bullet points. Which isn't just like a total abdication of the responsibility you have to the country. Like, the intelligence is coming with potential actual threats. But, like, again, why did you want to be president in the first place? If you don't care about this stuff, if you're not interested in knowing about this stuff, what is the point? Why do we keep electing people that aren't interested? And by the way, I'm not just attacking Donald Trump there. Joe Biden is so checked out at this point. These are people that have worked for decades to become president, to hold a position that they would be like super apathetic about. He got way more worked up and excited about stacking McDonald's than he did about receiving intelligence reports. By the way, when he left for Mar-a-Lago for Christmas on December 23rd of last year, that was the last briefing he got for a month. So one would hope that if something really, really big happened, they would text him, but he wasn't regularly hearing about it, to know about it, to potentially do something to protect us. But again, they're like super worked up about the Afghanistan withdrawal or whatever. I mean, come on, we can't have a president who doesn't care about American lives. Anyway. Okay. Let me throw it again. A Dent hitchhiking dragon on Twitch hit 15 months. Speaking of armored mice, is one of the pictures Reepicheep? I don't know if one of the pictures is Reepicheep. I don't believe so. I don't know that any of these are from Narnia. Some are from Redwall. That is true. Some are from like different RPGs and things. Generator hit 15 months. Thank you, Generator, as always. Nance Attack hit 8 months. Nice. I Am Sock says, my God, look at that cable management. Well, it's a laptop. I had to add things on for this setup. I apologize. Okay, Musically Meg says, didn't he say if he lost, we probably wouldn't see him again? I was hoping that was the promise he'd keep, but here he is again. Yeah, we see him a lot less. Like, let's take that, you know. Nana Nikki says, this is the best show aside from the secondhand clip views. If I wasn't tier 3 already, I'd join. Yeah, sorry. I wish there was a better way to do that. I also wish, by the way, I did an Instagram live with Brett, and you can just like add a person in, a guest. You can't do that on YouTube. Why? You can't gift subs, you can't add someone in. Why are they so behind? I don't know. Rhino Wiki says, if a progressive gets POTUS in the future, what level of confidence do you have they would try and be successful at SCOTUS reform? I mean, it depends on the Senate, of course. Look, getting a progressive president is our best chance at getting what we want, but it is not like, oh, now it's all coming up us. There's still going to be the Senate, the House. There's going to be the Supreme Court. There are going to be so many roadblocks. It is going to be far better. It is not going to be like, we're done now. Fat Dragon hit the 3rd month of Tier 1. Says, too easy. Thank you. I'm glad that we made it easy for you. Melissa Kellar, welcome to Tier 1 membership. Desi Rose hit 10 months. Says, in my lifetime, the only successful presidential steal was Bush Jr. for the Republicans. Exactly. And that was a very different sort of thing. And again, even in that case, it's not like they were going into all these states and manipulating it. Like, we got to see what it was. It's never what they say. Okay, let's jump through a few more stories in the time we have. Again, Indisputable will be coming up. I'm not going to be going over that. And also, if you're a Tier 2 or Tier 3 member, I will be doing a top 10 list, my top 10 favorite things about Arcane. That'll be coming up later on today. So with that, we unfortunately are going to have to move on to one of those secondhand clips, so prepare yourself for... Oh, God, I didn't realize who she was talking to in this clip. Okay, we're going to jump right into this.
Everyone saw me get stripped of committees as a brand new member of Congress, robbing my district of the ability to have representation working on committees. There was no action taken. As a matter of fact, our leader did nothing to defend me, did nothing to stop it. Then we saw today Paul Gosar censured, and then we saw him lose a committee. And this is another failure. But what do we see happening? 13 traitor Republicans helped Joe Biden pass his agenda, handing their voting card over to Nancy Pelosi, and nothing happens to them. So here's what we have to have. I think we feel confident that in 22 we're going to take back the House, but we have to take back the House with the Republicans with a plan that are actually going to put it into action instead of talk about it on Fox News. And that is what I want to see happen. So here's what leadership is going to have to do. Right now, we know that Kevin McCarthy has a problem in our conference. He doesn't have the full support to be speaker. He doesn't have the votes that are there, because there's many of us that are very unhappy about the failure to hold Republicans accountable, while conservatives like me, Paul Gosar, and many others just constantly take the abuse by the Democrats. The American people aren't going to have it.
Okay, again, as with Lauren Boebert, what are the big issues with these people is they're not actually intelligent people. They're just doing a version of a thing they've seen on TV. So when she says he doesn't have the votes that are there, she doesn't even know what she's saying at that point. A failure to hold Republicans accountable while being mean to Paul Go. Well, so do you want them to be held accountable, or do you not want them to be held accountable? Like she doesn't know. She has an idea, sort of the threat that she's trying to put together towards House leadership, but she doesn't really know what she's saying. Does she like Kevin McCarthy? Does she not like Kevin McCarthy? She's implying there that he doesn't have the votes to be the leader, which, by the way, might be true, and also I don't really care, but the idea that the House leadership, the position as House Majority Leader, should hinge on whether you're nice to Marjorie Greene or not, when, again, what would he have done to protect her? Honestly. Like, if the thing that he did that was so bad was that she got censured and Paul Gosar got censured, first of all, she didn't mention why in either of those cases. She's suspiciously leaving off the context of that, but what would he have done? How would he protect? I don't know. I honestly have no idea. And he has been an apologist for so much else that has happened. Remember, with Marjorie Greene, she didn't get censured for the first awful thing that came up. They let multiple things slide, and he was perfectly fine with those. And in the case of who she wants to be held accountable, it's the traitor Republicans who handed over their voting card to Nancy Pelosi. Well, she said that one of the reasons that what he had allowed was bad was that she lost her committee privileges. She lost the ability to work in the committees. And then I would have to ask, we'll work towards what? And by that, I don't mean that she's completely lacking in substance and doesn't actually care and doesn't know anything. I don't mean that. Let's say hypothetically she was going to work on something. They're in the minority, so if anything's going to get passed, it's going to be working with Democrats, just by definition. So would you not be handing over your voting card to Nancy Pelosi? If you were in some crazy alternate dimension to come up with a piece of legislation that the Democrats wanted to pass with you, how would that work? How would that not make you a traitorous Republican? She doesn't explain. What work does she want to do? What would she be doing? She'd be doing nothing. But anyway, despite the fact that she made those threats against Kevin McCarthy, she then tweets, "I just got off a good call with GOP leader. We spent time talking about solving problems not only in the conference but for our country. I like what he has planned ahead." Well then, does that, okay. I highly doubt that he has sketched out a legislative agenda that she's like, yes, I believe that will answer the concerns of my constituents. It's either that she's just like frantic and frenetic and has no idea what she's talking about, which there's some evidence that in that direction. Or what he did was he reassured her about her place in the caucus were they to take over. That she will get her committees back, Paul Gosar will get their committees back, they'll have revenge against the Democrats that wronged them. That honestly seems like the most likely thing going on here. And by the way, that is probably going to happen. They said, if you censure Paul Gosar, well then, we're going to do it at you. We're going to do the same thing. And they probably will. But Democrats don't do videos of them murdering, you know, their colleagues or whatever. They don't say the terrible things that she said. So they are going to strip Democrats of their committee hearings. But it's going to be for nonsense. And there is a risk in that. When the American people see what they're using their power for, are they going to approve that? Some Republicans definitely will. We're going to have to see if that's enough to actually regularly win a continued majority. Okay, I believe we have a little bit more insanity before we get into something really pathetic. So we've got insanity and something pathetic that I think we can fit in both. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to whip you around one more for another video. Oh, let me just briefly mention that. So 420 JR mentions that Jack Dorsey resigns. I don't care. Should I care? I know that I should probably care. He's the leader of Twitter. I spend a lot of time on Twitter. Twitter is important for our field. I just don't know that I care. I don't. Will they finally do something about like conspiracy theories and white supremacists? I don't know. You can't care about everything. You cannot invest your spirit in literally every single issue. I'm not talking about, you know, Matthew McConaughey in this case. I probably could, honestly. I feel a little bit more invested in that. You can't care about everything. That's it. But anyway, yeah, he's out. So Twitter's gonna change? Maybe? I don't know. Do you or I know how important he individually was? I don't know. Yeah, good point there from Plastic Butler. If Mark Zuckerberg resigns, okay, then maybe that's something. Loic says, will the new guy let Trump go back? I doubt it. I don't know. I just don't know what effect it has on my life or on your life. So it's hard for me to get worked up about it. But with that said, let's jump into a video.
So the QAnon movement really is a movement that spun out of your digital soldiers. I'm tired of these QAnon people attacking me.
Maybe, I don't know that.
But you know some of them.
I think it's a disinformation campaign. I think it's a disinformation campaign that the CIA created. That's what I believe. Now, I don't know that for a fact, but that's what I think it is. I think it's a disinformation campaign. There's actually a very interesting article today out that was sent to me. I'll send it to you about how the QAnon movement has failed and all that. But I find it total nonsense, and I think it's a disinformation campaign created by the left, and the types of people that can create something like that are the kinds of people that we train for certain with certain skills in the CIA.
Yep. I mean, is this not the natural end of every conspiracy theory, every insurrection? Actually, I think the other side did this. We had an idea, we had a plan, and it failed. So I think the left did it? Why does everything have to be some complex thing going on in smoke-filled... Maybe crazy people exist, and crazy people work themselves up into a frenzy, and someone on 8chan or whatever used them, knowing that they're simpletons. Like Occam's razor, but for crazy. That's what we need right now. Occam's razor, but for crazy. There are crazy people, and they will believe virtually anything you say, and both of them... By the way, that was Mike Flynn and Lynn Wood, if that wasn't clear. Two of the leaders of the crazy used it. They used it, and now they don't like it. Maybe they can't control it. Maybe it's spun off into its own thing. I do want to briefly touch on one of the comments that Mike Flynn made there, because he said, I want to send you an article about how QAnon has failed. So, am I wrong in assuming that if he's going to send that article to Lynn Wood, It's because he believes Linwood doesn't yet understand how QAnon failed, and he personally, Mike Flynn, found the article to be, really illuminating about how QAnon has failed. What do you need an article for? JFK Jr. didn't come back. Robin Williams isn't around. No Michael Jackson. There was no Great Storm. Donald Trump isn't in office right now. He didn't work with everybody to put Chrissy Teigen in jail. Tom Hanks wasn't hung at the Capitol. It failed because nothing that they said would happen happened. Nothing. What do you need the article for? Is the article literally just a video of the last 4 years? They said that, didn't they say that at like John McCain's funeral, they're gonna finally round up and kill Hillary Clinton? Nothing happened. That's why it failed. It failed because it was nonsense, and both of you knew from the very beginning that it was nonsense. But now both of them have to go in their own direction. They want something that they have more control over. Now, Mike Flynn, out of the two, has long pitched himself as more closely affiliated with QAnon. I mean, after all, he was the one doing like the public, like what was it, their creed or whatever of QAnon. He's talking about QAnon constantly, and now it's just a CIA thing. So wait, let's say that you're right. You're not. But let's say that you're right. Then you are one of the most pathetic, embarrassing figures in American politics. You wholeheartedly, the pledge, thank you. You wholeheartedly believed CIA propaganda and convinced good conservatives to believe CIA propaganda. Now, I get that you were bamboozled by that, but you did the work of the machine, of the deep state, of the devil himself. And so if the QAnon thing was just made up by the CIA, then can we move on from all the face eating and the adrenochrome and all of that, the pizza? Can we do? No? We're still going to have that? This little feud between them, is that going to result in like the QAnon people moving on? No, because now there's no Q. There's just all of these people with their own communities, and they're not going to just turn to their communities and be like, well, had a good run. I mean, we didn't. We had a bad run, but we had a run. So it's still just going to hang around. And Linwood, they really seem to have turned against. I think he was a little bit too independent of a grifter from the very beginning. Even in the wake of the last election, he was too clearly in it on for himself. Like the rest of them are all supposed to be pretending that at the end of the day, this is going to benefit Donald Trump. And Linwood was one of the worst at doing that. He couldn't shield his self-interest in the same way. Mike Flynn is still more closely tied to Donald Trump. We will see if that will be able to save him. Okay, now really fast. We only have a few more minutes. I do want to do one more video. So let's get into this. I cannot believe that the entire hour and a half is almost gone. Let's jump into this.
Where, not at least within the cultural sphere, there seems to be a call from a tiny, yet very vocal minority that every male character or good role model must have a female replacement. One only needs to look at the discussion surrounding who will play the next James Bond. And it's not just James Bond. In recent years, we have seen Doctor Who, Ghostbusters, Luke Skywalker, The Equalizer, all replaced by women. And men are left with the Craze and Tommy Shelby. Is there any wonder we are seeing so many young men committing crime?
Okay. That right there is Conservative Member of Parliament Nick Fletcher. And the reason I wanted to play you that video was so that you know that there are weak, pathetic men in countries other than the United States. He believes that because women are being cast in some roles that men used to have, that is why men commit crimes. And you might already be sort of figuring out that there's a few logical issues with that. So first of all, before Ghostbusters and before the talk about James Bond, were women committing tons of crimes? I mean, after all, they didn't have good role models. I mean, what were they watching? Like Killing Eve and Thelma and Louise. I mean, they see all these criminals and that's it. No positive role models. That's why women were killing everyone left and right. No, wait, actually men were still killing people back then. Men were killing people back when they had their role models of Dirty Harry and Clint Eastwood and, like, okay, there have been good and bad role models for a very long time. The idea that a talk about James Bond, which, by the way, virtually everyone that they talk about for being James Bond is still a guy, or that Doctor Who had a woman, the idea that that is causing men to commit crimes is so on its face pathetic that I'm almost impressed that you would go and speak where you know cameras are and like culturally cuck yourself so thoroughly. It is so incredibly pathetic. I want to throw into this a tweet that Joe Rogan sent that implies that hard times create strong men, which create good times, which create good men, which create hard times. And the we're gonna put this into the video. It's like a little chart. The implication there being that he is one of the strong men. His life is being paid millions of dollars to chit-chat and gossip while doing drugs, which is a fine life. It's basically my life too, except for the millions of dollars. Hardly like strong men. He's not chopping down trees. Okay, so now he chit-chats before he told people to eat bugs. I don't understand these supposed alpha males. I just don't get literally any of them. They are so whiny, so constantly aggrieved and victimized. How is that consistent with any of their supposed alpha male stuff? I just don't understand it. And so, look, there is an assault against men, and it is men being dragged down by weaklings. Some of them have podcasts, some are members of parliament. You got Josh Hawley too. There are a lot of grifters that are trying to convince men to be weak, to be emotional, to constantly look at anyone who's not like them as a threat, and to as a result of that, to be so constantly scared, so constantly anxious, terrified of how people are perceiving you, that you will be desperate to follow these grifters, to be told what you can do so that you won't seem weak for a bit. It's pathetic. It's pathetic here, and it's pathetic in the UK as well. Okay, unfortunately, we are way over. I want to thank everyone for joining me for the Shed Show. Hopefully the last Shed Show. Our power should be back tomorrow, but we'll have to see. Anyway, Indisputable is coming up in just a few minutes. Let me let you know who is going to be co-hosting. Also, our top 10 list will be coming up soon. Molly Parmer is going to be joining Dr. Rashad Ritchie. Josiah Lippincott will be on for debate, so you're not going to want to miss that. If you're a Tier 2 or Tier 3 member, the top 10 list is going to be coming up a little bit later on, but thank you, everyone. Everyone's saying more Shed Shows. You do not mean that, but thank you. Thank you to the Twitch chat and in the YouTube chat. Appreciate you all being here, and I will see you soon. Oh, well, I guess, we should have some tradition still. Stay safe out there. Stay sane out there. And I'll see you soon. Stay in a shed out there.